all for being here tonight, and we're starting online now. Welcome everyone. So tonight we have the lecture of Mani dos Santos about the law of labor, and yeah, we'd like to invite you, Mani.
Thank you.
That's the word with you.
Just directly so you're not out of focus or out of the...
I will.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another Allan Kardec Spiritist Group of New Zealand lecture. It's more like a study, I'm not here to lecture anybody, or it's just more of a study that we prepared about the law of labor. And just occurred to me that when I'm talking about labor, in a short week, we just had our long weekend. For those who are not in New Zealand, we had our long weekend, which was the Queen's birthday, which, by the way, is not her real birthday. It's just a holiday that we have. So seems a little bit contradictory to be talking about law of labor in a week that we only work 4 days. But hey, now our next holiday in New Zealand will only be in October, so we're going to have to labor a lot between now and then, right? So it's good for us to have a little bit of the Spiritist view of labor, the importance of work in our life, in our reincarnation. In this life, in our incarnation, we as human beings, we have many milestones. We have many landmarks in our lives. Our parents celebrate our first steps when they are babies and start from crawling to step. Mommy, daddy, yay, one more step. And we also know mothers crying if we are parents, we see that happening when we take our kids to the first day in school. Oh, my little baby now is going to school. And if we don't have kids, we've been there. I'm sure our mothers cried when we went to school. Probably some of them were happy that we're not home anymore, bothering them. But it was a moment to celebrate anyway. We all go through our emotions of hormones and feelings and anger and anxiety of being teenagers. And we all go through every year going between primary school to here in New Zealand intermediate school and also high school. When we finally get ourselves ready, either through university or polytech or apprenticeship, we join our workforce and we get a job. And then all our emotions as teenagers, yes, freedom, I'm going to be independent, I can do anything I want with my money, I don't depend on anybody, I'm happy, I have a job. We feel accomplished, right, because we have a job. And then we realize that having a job is more than just getting money. Job, you actually realize that, of course, you get the means for your survival, paying the rent, paying for your parties, paying for your new sneaker when you are first jobs, paying for whatever you need to pay that maybe your parents didn't pay for you, or nobody else could pay or wanted to pay for you. You went there and did it. But also you start to realize that your job, your work affects other people, affects your self-esteem. You start to believe more in yourself. You feel good about yourself because you are doing something productive. And the job that you're doing is affecting other people that you are helping, either your boss or if you are in customer service, a customer. So you have a realization that as a society point of view, job or work is just more than a milestone and more than a landmark. This is something that helps us grow first financially, but also emotionally. But according to Spiritism, what is the importance of labor, of work? Does it stop there, or does it actually go beyond? And it's so important, this topic, that Allan Kardec, instructed by the spirits, dedicated a whole chapter in the third part of the Spirit's book, which talk about the moral laws, the divine laws, the laws that rule not only our life in society, but rule the universe. There are 10 of them, and the second chapter, or the second law that he talks about, actually the third. The first one, he talks about the divine law, which is the same as the natural law. And then the second law is a law of adoration, or worship. And then he goes into the law of labor. So it's very important. First, he talks about the connection between us and God, in the law of worship, that is important for us to grow as humans and as spirits. And also he's talking about the law of labor. So it's very important. There's a whole chapter on the Spirit's book that talks about that. And basically my presentation is based on this part, but also some other secondary books from the Spiritist literature, books by Emmanuel, Bring Light, and also the Pathway, the Truth and the Life, and also books by Jonah de Angelis. So, what do the superior spirits have to tell us, to offer us enlightenment in the topic of law of labor? So, do we need to work? Is there a necessity to work? Is the necessity of labor a law of nature? It's very interesting to point the question that he's asking if it's a law of nature. You know, we're going to come back to that part of the question. But the answer is, labor is a law of nature. Yes, it is a law of nature. And as such, it is a necessity per se. Because civilization both increases people's needs and enjoyments. It obliges them to work more. So it's not just a law of society, like I was talking about before. Yeah, we feel good, we are helping society, we're making money, but also we are a little part of this big puzzle, this big machine, we're a little clog on this big machine by helping people, by being useful. But it goes beyond that because it's actually a law of nature. It's not just a law of society, so it's actually a divine law. It's a divine instruction that we have, we need to work. Not something that society tells us to do. We as human beings, we feel the need to work. And because of law of nature, it is a necessity. Because we are part of nature, we're part of the creation, we need to work. But this is the interesting part of the answer, because civilization both increases people's needs and enjoyments, it obliges them to work more. Okay, so civilization both increases people's needs. So as we're part of society, part of civilization, and especially now, 2019, this book was written 162 years ago. So since then, the spirits already warned us that there would be the case that civilization will increase our needs. But that's the question: is there really our needs, or is it our wants? Do we actually need everything that civilizations tell us that we need? Because right next to it, it's needs and enjoyments. Not just needs, enjoyments. There's a lot of many different ways of enjoying our life and trying to fulfill our lives with stuff, with things that we need, the things that we think we need. And it obliges us to work more. So sometimes, because we are in this search of fulfilling this need, this superficial need that we have, this material need that we have, and this enjoyment, we work more than we need. We work more than we have to. Does that make sense? It's something that we always try to fulfill ourselves in the material side, which as we have a spiritual nature, is never going to be fulfilled with material stuff. We need to look at work and labor and look at ourselves and society in a different way. Should we understand by labor to entail only material occupations? No. The spirit labors as much as the body. Every useful occupation is a labor. So when we are thinking about ourselves and working and making money, and just that as being labor, the Spirit tells us that we need to work, of course, to sustain ourselves, to maintain ourselves, to live in society, to be part of society. But the physical work is not the only work that we have to do. Because every useful occupation is a labor. Because the Spirit works as much as the body. So a conversation, is that work? Is talking to a friend work? Is reading a book work? So the concept of work is much bigger than we think. We tend to think that work is only, we work 9 to 5 or whatever shift you have, and you get the payment every week or every fortnight or every month, whatever, however you get your money or you get your salaries, and that's it, that's your work. But as a spiritist, we see that our life is work. We are living this life and we are constantly working because our spirit works as much as the body, and every useful situation or useful occupation is labor. So your conversation is going to be work if your conversation is useful. The book that you're reading is going to be useful, it's going to be labor if it's useful book. Being on social medias, is that work?
Depends.
It depends. If you are on a Facebook watching our lecture, that could be work. You're working on yourself. Or anything that is instructive and help you grow as a human being and as a spirit, it is work. Because it's something useful. So, and because we tend to think that only the material is work. Yeah? Because as we're talking about as well, we sometimes confuse our needs with our wants. And society in a way creates this way of artificial or superficial needs that we go to extreme measures to acquire that. For example, sometimes when we have a bank account and we have a credit card, and then sometimes you get a letter from the bank, you now apply for, instead of 1,000 credit, you have 10,000. So, oh wow, 10,000, I have $10,000 to spend now. And then, but what is that really? It's just somebody on the computer just adding an extra zero into your limit, but that money doesn't belong to you. It's not like somebody worked and gave you the money, put in your account. It's just a imaginary money that you have to pay the bank. And if you don't, there will be interest on that. So you have this illusion of, now I can buy the new phone that I was looking for, or I can do this, I can do that. And sometimes we get overwhelmed by all this advertising and all the needs that society bombarded you with through internet, through television, through radio, through walking on the streets. So sometimes it feels like even that movie Minority Report, when you're walking, computers scan your eyes and see who you are and gives you does anybody haven't seen that movie? It's a science fiction movie that people give you the information or the advertising that they know that you are going to bite the bait. So we are kind of getting close to that. So we have to be really careful not to mix our needs with our wants. And we need to keep working, but not only on our material needs, but also in our, we also nourish our soul, just like we had in the first reading, which is very, once again, very apt to this part of the... So we need to expand this definition of work, yeah? We are always working, because we all have to evolve in all the areas in our life. Work is not just money. It's not just about the money, like, who's the singer that says it's all about the money? Anyway, it's not about the money, it's about everything else. So, Allan Kardec goes beyond and he asks, so why has labor been imposed on humankind? So, Allan Kardec is asking the spirits, why is imposed? Why do we have to work? And the spirits, because Allan Kardec is always like this, always asking the spirits a bit further, a bit more, for our sake as well. So they say it's a consequence of their corporeal nature. As we all know, we are immortal spirits that are having a human existence. We are not human beings that have spiritual experiences. We are is the opposite. We are souls incarnated that are having this human experience. So we have a corporeal life, and this work is a consequence of this. We need to work so we can survive. Because going back to the definition of work, back in the caves, in the prehistoric times, we had to hunt, we had to harvest, we had to cover ourselves, we had to work, not getting paid, but work to survive. Now it's the same. We work to survive, but we have the luxuries that we have these days. But the concept is the same, working to survive. It is a means of expiation, and at the same time a means of perfecting their intelligence. Without labor, humans would remain in intellectual infancy. So it's only through work that we evolve our intelligence. We build on the intelligence we already carry from our previous lives, and we face our challenges, our tasks, our different jobs, we grow. We can see that in our professional life. As we start working, we start going from one job to the other, and hopefully carrying transferable skills that you can go from one job to the other and evolving as a professional. But the same thing happens with us intellectually and morally as well. Because as a consequence of the corporeal life, but it's also a means of expiation, a means for you to learn. Sometimes learning things that you were not able to learn in a different life. There's like sometimes we keep moving jobs. Oh, my boss, he always telling me to do this like this, and then you move another job. Oh, that boss, or that colleague, or this. You're never overcoming the same. You're always changing position, but you're facing the same situations. What is the common denominator in that situation? It's that person, right? So until you learn how to overcome that problem, you're going to have to go through that expiation or purification. Expiation sometimes has a very negative connotation. So you have to learn that lesson to move on. In the same time, you're going to be perfecting your intelligence. So it's not just an imposition, it's actually a gift that God is giving us. To work so we can evolve. It's a great tool that we have. So, thus, we must owe our food, safety, and well-being through our own labor and activity. God has granted more intelligence to certain persons in order to compensate for their physical weakness, but labor is involved nevertheless. And depending on the physical characteristic, the level of intelligence, the nature, we have different jobs. We're not going to go into details who should get paid more and doing what job, but we all have different skills to be useful somehow in society, to grow somehow in society, using the tools that that God has given us. Because every type of work is noble, no matter what you do. You know, a gardener, a janitor, an engineer, a laborer, a dentist, a nurse, they're all doing their best at their job. And every job, every work is noble. So we shouldn't be comparing ourselves. But we also always compare ourselves to other people because the grass is always greener on the other side, isn't it? Oh, I wish I had that job. He's so lucky, you know, to get the car gives him the company gives him a car to go around, and, you know. But that person that has that job wishes he had another job. Yeah, sometimes it's rare, but it's possible to find people that love their job. Yeah, it is possible, you know. But for the majority of times, we're always trying to look at other people, to compare ourselves to other people, which is a big trap because we should compare ourselves to ourselves. You know, I need to get a better job than this one, so I can improve. I reach the limit of what I'm doing right now. There's nowhere I can go. Maybe I need another job, not because somebody else has a job, but because you would improve from that job. But every type of work is work. But for some people, you know, for example, there's a story of a guy that is always, there's an IT guy who works from home. He's always on the computer, and then his neighbor walking by. The guy's always on the computer, always playing games, you know. But he doesn't know the guy's actually working. He's doing his work from home. And then one day he's had enough of the computer. He wants to get some fresh air. Some beautiful sunny days in Oakland, not like today, but there's some beautiful days in Oakland. He wants to go outside and, you know, there's mow his lawn. And then he's mowing the lawn, and they go, you're finally working today. Huh? So I said, well, I'm having a break, actually. I'm having a break from my work, and I'm doing this so I can do some activity. So, but every job is a job. You know? In his case, his work in the computer is a job, but he's also, you know, just doing the lawn is also a job. But for him, it's a break. It's a mental break. So, yeah, every type of work is noble, and it's, you know, in the eyes of God, in the eyes of society, should be respected. And then Emmanuel, on the way, the truth, and the life, he comes into this to explain us a little bit on the chapter 4 that the concept of that we complain about our work sometimes. Sometimes we're not happy with ourselves, and we project that into what we're doing, in the job that we're doing. So the problem, however, is not the type of job, but a lack of understanding of the opportunity received. In general, complaints are, in the sense, daughters of unconscious laziness. It is the innate desire to keep what is useless and ruinous, what remains from the previous falls from our dark past, our previous lives. Sometimes we bring this inclination to complain, you know, about what we're doing now, because it's just pretty much unconscious laziness. We don't want to evolve. Sometimes we feel like we're stuck and we just want to stay like that. But Jesus came to remove us from death in error, from this constant error that we commit, bringing us the blessing of work, which is the unceasing movement of life. I think it's quite interesting. He says an unceasing movement of life. Because even after this life, if you're thinking, oh, I'm going to work hard, and then I'm going to reach 65, I'm going to retire, I'm going to have some rest, and then when I finally pass away, I can rest. Rest in peace. Yeah, when we say. But, as the spirits tell us, work is the unceasing movement of life. Even after this life, we're going to keep working. Because life goes on. And work must be done. Everything in nature works. That's why in the first slide there it was saying that it's not just a civilization or society law. It's law of nature. Because in nature, everything works. And everything has its purpose. Every little bug, every little insect, every, even the things that flies, I very dislike flies. I don't like flies at all. We don't have many flies in New Zealand. But even flies, they have their job. Sometimes we don't know what they're doing. Maybe they're just reminding us to clean up a little bit more. Be more careful where we leave our food. Maybe it's their job, I don't know. But there's always something useful in nature. Everything is doing something in nature. And why shouldn't we? Even after life, you're going to continue working. Because guess what? Jesus tells us that even God works. My Father is always at His work to this very day. And I, too, am working. So if Jesus, which is so evolved, He didn't reach perfection and, kept telling the angels how to play their harp in heaven, and we all, like we have this image in our brain, in our minds, from previous analogies that were introduced to society. No, we're going to keep working. But then our concept of work is going to be different. We're not going to be working to make money. We're going to be working, and we're going to be happy to be working because we are working in our evolution. We're going to be working to help other people. We're going to realize that we only achieve what we achieve by other people helping us, doing their job by helping us. And they're going to feel, oh, now is my chance to help other people like other spirits help me. And this is going to keep working like that. So that's why the importance of realization that work actually goes beyond what we're doing here in this life. So talking about animals, for example, so we can think then, okay, so we have to work, but what about the animals? God provides everything for the animals, right? Why does nature itself provides for all the wants of the animals? And it's interesting because it says all the wants of the animals. But do animals have wants? No, animals have needs. Yeah. So why does nature itself provide for all the wants of the animals? And then the spirits come to tell us, to remind us once again, like I just said before, everything in nature labors. Everything in nature works. The animals labor as you do, but their work, like their intelligence, is limited to their self-preservation. So a lot of the work that the animals do is mainly following law of nature, law of work, but it's limited to their self-preservation. They're not worried about, what they're gonna be saving for next week or next day, or we humans we worry about it. And even Jesus told us, do not worry, because every day has its evil. Look at the birds in the sky that don't sow anything, and they have food. Look at the lilies on the field. See, if God provides for them, why He wouldn't provide for you? So God provides for us as well. And it's not just like nature comes and gives. The animals, they have to hunt. That's work. They're working as well. So it's not provided like that. It is also in doing the work, they're doing their job. The bees are making honey, pollinating the flowers, the same as the birds eating the seeds and then pooping somewhere else, and then that tree is going to grow somewhere else. They're all doing their job. They're not provided by this, spoon-fed. They have to work. And so do we. So must we. We must work as well. While among human beings, it has a double objective. So for us, it's not only self-preservation. We have to work on our self-preservation, the preservation of the body, but also the development of thought. Like was explained before, we need to develop our intelligence. We have to develop our thought. The latter is also a necessity and raises them above themselves. So the development of thought is also a necessity. We need to improve. It's a part of another law, another moral law, another divine law, the law of progress. Everything progresses. So in order to progress, we need to work our intelligence. We need to develop our thought. So we are given more than the animals. We have free will, but also we have the consequence of our free will. We give the choice, we give the opportunity of choice. We can choose what to do with our intelligence. And then later on we can, put up with the consequences of the actions that we have done. So, okay, we're going to keep working. If God is still working, Jesus is still working. Until when are we going to be working forever? Are we going to be working when we go to more evolved worlds? What's going to happen then? So Allan Kardec asked the question, on more highly evolved worlds, are humans subject to the same necessity of labor? Well, if God is still working and if Jesus is still working, I believe even if when we evolve, not if we evolve because we're all going to evolve, when we evolve, we're still going to have to work from different worlds as well. So the Spirit tells us that the nature of the labor is relative to that of needs, of the needs. The fewer the material needs, the less material the labor. Yet, you must not assume that humans on such worlds remain inactive and useless. Idleness would be a torture instead of a benefit. Because when you're doing something that you love, something that you enjoy, it's priceless. Of course, you get the money because it's you need to work on your self-sustainability. You have to pay your bills. You have to to pay your expenses. You have to plan for the future. If you have a family, if you want to travel to enrich your experiences, so you can because you can learn a lot from traveling as well. So all that is good. But when you're doing something that you love, it doesn't feel like work. And when you're having a good time, time flies by, right? Sometimes when you're in a job that you really dislike it and you don't really enjoy being there, you start working at 9 and then, okay, I'm going to have a coffee now. And then you go have a coffee and start working. And then you start working. It's like, oh, it's only 10:30. I was dragging because you're not enjoying it. You're just moving with time. You're not actually doing anything. But it actually, when you're engaged in what you're doing, with love, with care, with passion, it flies by. And it doesn't feel like work. So idleness will be a torture instead of a benefit. So when you are evolved, you don't want to be on holidays. There are holidays. You need rest. You're going to see that as well. Because rest is also part of the law of labor. We can't just work incessantly. We have seen in the society, back in the days where there was a industrial revolution, people used to work 16 hours a day, 17 hours a day, Monday to Monday, non-stop. But nowadays we have weekends, we have holidays like we had on Monday. So we are more in tune to that. We realize that we cannot just work, even though some people are workaholic. They've made up a name for people that are addicted to work, workaholic. Some people that only feel good when they're working, but that's not healthy either. Some people using work to escape from something else. But so we need to have a rest as well. We're going to get to that point, but my point is that when you are doing something that you like and you want to feel useful, idleness or doing nothing, it will be a torture. Some people have, when I win the lotto, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to be, what are you going to do? Sit down and just do nothing? You might be doing other stuff, that might not be work, but you're not going to be idle. You're going to have to do something. Also, as we evolve, the labor it's relative to that of needs, because we won't have more material needs as we have now. We probably won't eat as much. We probably won't have these needs that we have at the moment. Need a new phone, need a new car, need a new shoes, need 10, 20 pairs of shoes, or need 10 jackets, or need, There's a great book, a great documentary about it called
Minimalism.
Minimalism. Yeah, it's on Netflix. I'm not getting any money from Netflix, by the way. It's not sponsored by anybody. But it's a very good, interesting book that once you go for a long trip or you move houses, you realize how much stuff, books that you haven't read in 10 years, or folders of photos that you haven't looked at in how long, So it's quite interesting to see that all the stuff that we don't need, as we evolve, we're going to see that we don't need that much stuff materially. That we don't need to work. The work that we do as well, it won't be as material as these days. Because it's talking about again the pleasure of work, and we're going to be talking a lot about this person a little bit further ahead as well, about the limits of work. Mother Teresa of Calcutta, she was being followed by this reporter doing an article on her, and then she was cleaning somebody's skin full of maggots and with somebody with a leper, and then this little reporter said, "Oh, you are a saint. I wouldn't do what you're doing for $1 million." And then she turned around and said, "Neither would I." She did it for free. Because it's not money that is getting her to do that job. Because for her, the pleasure of serving God in that person, that sick person, that's her reward. She doesn't need $1 million. So her wisdom in the simple reply, right? I wouldn't do what you're doing for $1 million. Neither would I. I'm just doing because I love God, because I love this person, and I want to be useful. I want to work. I'm here to work. And then somebody else asked Mother Teresa of Calcutta, what's the limit of love? What's the limit of charity? And then she says, until it hurts. Of course, we don't expect to get out of here and be just like Mother Teresa of Calcutta, please. And then blame me, don't blame me. What I'm saying is that for people that, spirits that evolve, that have that commitment with their passion, with their job, with their duty as Christians, they can give until it hurts. Because it's their limit. But what about us? What will be our limit? Allan Kardec asked as well. Let's go first to 683. Now that we're talking about it, we're going to jump a little bit. So what is the limit of labor? Allan Kardec asked the spirits, what's the limit? Until when can I work? They have to work forever? They have to work, because we're always thinking work of something unpleasant. But when we evolve, we see work as opportunity. The limit of one's strength, kind of what Mother Teresa said. If he's hurting, stop working. So the limit of one's strength. However, in this regard, God leaves people free to decide what their limit is. Because you're not going to be damage your health, physical health, mental health, your stress, because of work. Right? You need to have that balance. Because, going back to question 682, since rest is needed after labor, isn't rest, therefore, a law of nature? Undoubtedly it is. We need to rest. Rest serves to restore the strength of the body. It is also needed to give a little more freedom to intelligence, which must raise itself above matter. Because just remembering back in the questions that we discussed a few questions ago, even when the body is resting, the soul, the spirit doesn't stop working. Even while your body is resting, you might be meditating, you might be sitting on a chair somewhere in Fiji. I wish. But your mind is working, your mind is contemplating, your mind is, your soul might be somewhere else. You might be reading a good book. So your body is resting, but your soul is also, because even during our rest, talking about the spirit, about spiritism facing rest, when we talk about our sleep, we are still doing stuff. Our body is resting, but during our sleep, we have the emancipation of the soul, the astral trips. Our spirit is free to roam. So depending on what you've been thinking, what you've been doing, what you've been watching, what you've been desiring, what you've been acting out in your daily life, your spirit goes. If before we sleep we go and say, oh please, superior spirits, thank you for the day, God, thank you for the day that we had, please allow me to continue my study, my enlightenment, my work when I sleep, guaranteed you're going to be working. You're going to be taken somewhere, you're going to be watching. Sometimes you will even remember being somewhere, listening to something, or because we are actually actively working. If you have a heavy dinner and if you are, go to bed after watching a violent movie, or or having trouble about what you're going to be doing tomorrow, your body's going to be there, and your spirit's going to be very close to your body, still worrying about you're going to be turning in bed, you're going to be having not a very good sleep, because you are attached to the matter. But if you free yourself from your problems and give yourself to God and to the superior spirits to help you, you'll be on your way to continue working, not in your body, but with your soul. From this book, Moments of Renovation, Moments de Renovação, from Divaldo Pereira Franco, the work is grounded in the laws of love that govern the universe. The worm in the soil, the man on the earth, and the Father in the galaxy. It's all work. Life is a hymn to the dynamics of work. There is no leisure in nature. Because sometimes we think, we are here on planet Earth on holidays. We just came here to enjoy. People have this hedonistic view of the world. I'm just here to have, we only live once. YOLO. You only live once, so I'm going to enjoy my life, and who cares? Yeah, but the IC Spiritists, we know that we're not going to live once. We're living once this life, but we have lived many lives, and we're going to live many other lives. So what we do here is going to reflect in the future. And we're not here in at leisure. We have to see this planet as many things, but most of all as a hospital, because we are in process of expiation, we are in process of purification of ourselves, as school, because we are learning, and for some people it's actually a prison. It's our status to come back here to go through expiations that will force us to change our ways, and a lot of it through work, because work is also a law of love. In this chapter that this study is based on, this is the third part of the Spirit's book. It's called the Moral Laws, and all these laws come from the law of love, because everything comes from love. So the work that we must do to fulfill is a consequence of the law of love, because love guides us, gave us this opportunity to evolve through work, and we're only going to work to learn and to evolve by doing work. And the work that we have to do to evolve is by doing charity. Not just doing charity by giving alms or giving money to people, or actually by applying love in charity into your work. Everything you do, doing your best. Not just, of course, work, that goes without saying, but in your life as well, in your traffic, in a queue somewhere, or organizing an event, as we are at the moment. Festa Junina, everybody coming on Saturday. So everything has to be done with love, because that's the law that we are aiming towards to. Work is grounded in the laws of love that govern the universe, because it goes from the worm in the soil, man on the earth, and Father in the galaxy. Like Jesus said, my Father still works to this very day. So everybody is in the process of work. Everybody has a job. Not everybody has a job, but everybody's on this journey of work, of self-work, working on themselves to help society. Because that's the vision that we have as incarnated spirits. A little bit earlier on the Spirit's book, Allan Kardec asked the spirits, In what does the mission of incarnated spirits consist? So what's our mission? What's our job? Because we think of mission as a missionary, somebody that has a big, a mission or a big goal in mankind. But we all have our missions. Little missions, but they're missions, regardless. Like I'm saying, even the worm's job is important. It's something interesting to note as well. Another example of Chico Xavier, when people say, "Oh, you are great, you're the greatest medium, oh, you do so much charity," and then Chico Xavier, "No, eu sou só verme, I'm just a worm." And then Emmanuel's telling him, don't, start thinking in English the word he used, don't diminish the worm, don't put the worm down. It's like, because the worm is doing his job, and we as human beings still far away from that, So he was trying to be humble, but Emmanuel always by his side, tell him, we have to be even more humble, because the worm is doing its job. Don't put the worm down. Don't compare yourself to a worm, because the worm is doing its job. It's still getting there. So by the way, what does the mission of incarnated spirits consist? In instructing human beings, helping them to advance and improving their institutions by direct and material means. Missions are of various degrees of generality and importance. However, the one who cultivates the soil fulfills the mission as surely as the one who teaches or rules. Everything in nature is linked together. At the same time in which spirit is purifying itself through incarnation, it's also working to fulfill the designs of providence. Each one has its mission in this world because each one can be useful for something. So, instead of thinking, oh, what's my purpose? What's my goal? What's my mission? We tend to think like that of a big picture, that. But everything that we do, missions are of varied degrees of generality and importance. The one who cultivates the soil fulfills a mission as surely as the one who teaches or rules. So everybody is doing a job to help the evolution of this planet. So we can't compare ourselves to other people that do a different job to ours, in our eyes, in a lower job, because that's not true, we just saw that now. Or somebody that's doing another job that we wished we were doing. Because everybody's doing the job that they should be doing. And now we're going into a stage where we're just talking about it before, about technology, how things are changing. And there will be a time that many jobs are becoming obsolete. And what's going to happen to those people that their job is no longer required? So the economics and the economics and society, and there's a big balance of what's going to happen, because there's a lot of people that chose a career when they started to study, maybe 15 years ago. Oh yeah, this is hot now. I want to be, I don't know, what was fashionable 15 years ago. I want to be such and such, and then they studied, they got there, and now that job is no longer required because it's automated now. Post office, postman, we don't even see postmen anymore. Now they're doing only delivering post maybe 3 times a week, or couriers are, the things are changing. So what's going to happen in the future? How are we going to overcome this? It's very tricky to think about that, We have to think about work as a more, a bigger concept of work. Not just the work that we sustain ourselves to make money, but we have to work and evolve as spirits in every sense of our living, not just the 9 to 5, the money that we get. We are always working. And Emmanuel once again tells us, André Luis in this one, your profession is an apprenticeship and a privilege. If you put love in everything you do to make other people happy in your profession, wherever you are, there will always be a river of blessings. So that comes as well a little bit of charity, helping other people, but you are getting paid for it, but you are doing with love. You are helping somebody. because somebody else could be doing the same job, but doing, in a very different way that's not going to be beneficial to anybody. If in everything that you do, by doing the task that the Lord has given you to do, you are showing your spiritual portrait. If you try to improve yourself by improving your work, then you can be sure that work will give you back a better life. Because there was a couple of slides that I took it out because I thought that would be too much for the presentation. But Allan Kardec gives us one of the solutions for this problem of that we are probably going to be facing. We are actually facing already with unemployment, people that cannot find the job that they studied for, and jobs becoming scarce, and the difference between part of society that accumulated a lot of wealth and people that have nothing. So Allan Kardec tells us that the only solution for this is education, but not education of profession or a job. Education, moral education. How can we educate ourselves to be better not better at our job, but do our job as human beings, considering better to each other, of the division of wealth, of division of jobs, and into practice in our society. So it's quite interesting. I'm actually tempted to go back here and show you guys what I'm talking about, because and we have time. Okay, here you go. Okay. So it's slide number 11. It's quite a big chunk. That's why I took it out, because I thought I would be going over time. But how are we doing, Lucas? Are we okay for time?
Yeah, we have about 5 minutes, I suppose.
Okay. So I use this to be so we can take that as a kind of a conclusion of the study. It is not enough to tell people they must work. It is also necessary for those who make their living from their labor to actually be able to find employment. You just don't tell people, oh, you need to work. You have to actually give them work. Yeah? But this does not always happen. Whenever the lack of available work is widespread, it assumes the proportions of a calamity, much like a famine. So when we have people that have accumulation of wealth, and people that have no job, and people have no work and no means to sustain themselves, a calamity can happen. It forces people to be in a famine or a calamity, or in a state of desperation. Economic science seeks a remedy in the balance between production and consumption, but this balance, supposing that is possible, will always experience cycles, and during such phases, workers must still make a living. There is an element that has not been sufficiently pondered, but without which economic science is no more than a theory: education. Not intellectual education, but moral education. Not moral education through books, but moral education that consists in the art of forming character. So not just by studying and being educated, like you said, intellectually educated, but moral education, but not just through the books, but actually living, forming characters. That's a bit better. Moral education that creates habits, because education is the sum of acquired habits. I think it's brilliant how an educator, Allan Kardec, tells us that education is not just what we study. Not what you study, but education is the sum of acquired habits. This education, this instruction, needs to become action. When one considers the mass of individuals who are daily thrown into the torrent of the population, without restraints and handed over to their own instincts, can we wonder at the disastrous consequences? When the art of education is recognized, understood, and practiced, all individuals the world over will follow the habits of order and forethought for themselves and their dependents. They will respect whatever is respectable and will have habits that will enable them to less painfully endure unavoidable adverse days. Disorder and lack of forethought are two sores that only a sound education can heal. That is the starting point. The real element of well-being, the guarantee of security for all. So this is Allan Kardec's comments in the question 572. So in order to keep working and keep evolving and make sure that everyone will have enough is by moral education. Not only studying, but also working towards this education, putting this into practice. Because we are spirits that are coming from a semi-primitive world, in a world of trials and expiation, moving to the regenerative stage as we speak. So we need to keep working. Even when we go through the generative state, we're going to keep working. Work will always be there, respecting the limits of our strength, balancing. That's the thing, we need to find the balance, like everything in our life. Work and rest, intellectual education with moral education, so we can grow. And as